flow being so connected to discipline, which it so truly is. And so many people have discipline trauma essentially from previous parts of their life. But discipline is such a gateway. And discipline not only creates flow and leads to flow and creativity and being tapped in and getting those supernatural downloads and just being all of you, but it also is like an override button for your own bullshit, right?
This is Leah Steele, aka The Wealth Witch, and this is my podcast. I'm here to activate you to remembrance of your divine birthright to be wealthy in all areas of your life. This podcast is for people ready to have controversial conversations about the financial control, manipulation, and tyranny that faces humanity today.
I'm gonna live in freedom. I'm gonna live my destiny. I'm gonna live my freedom. I'm gonna live, the time is right now.
The Wealth Witch. It's for the people who are ready to wake up, deconstruct their wealth programming, and free themselves from the financial slavery consciousness that serves the global financial agenda. I'm committed to realizing a new global wealth paradigm where economic freedom is the reality and where you get to design and live the life of your dreams. Now let's do the damn thing.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Wealth Witch podcast. I am your host, Leah Steele, the Wealth Witch, and I am really excited and very honored to have the incredible Katrina Ruth with me here today on the show. Hey, Kat, how are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I know this is going to be such an amazing flow conversation because I just know that's what happens in your space and in mine. So thank you.
Amazing. Kat has been in my field of awareness for many years. I have taken several of her courses. I've been part of one of her high-end masterminds, but she is a prolific writer and best-selling author of over 50 Amazon best-selling books. She's a thought shaker and a speaker who runs a multi-million-dollar coaching business, mentoring, guiding, and entertaining the natural-born leaders who want to do business in life on their own terms. Kat has created and launched more than 300 products and programs over the 10 plus years she's been running her business, showing others the way to create lifelong success, having it all, pressing play on the life of their dreams. So, I think that probably the majority of my audience actually knows you and knows who you are. But I'm excited to have this conversation with you today because, I think simply, for the fact that you have been in the online space for a really long time and have continued to just be wildly successful in, I think, audience retention, in continuing to grow and expand your reach and your business. I'm always amazed and in awe of how you just have this ability to continue to come up with new offers that are relevant to what's happening in the space and in people's lives and with, in whatever's happening in the collective at the time. I'm always, watching at some level what you're doing because I feel like you really are somebody that I admire at the forefront of being able to evolve and grow and still really stay true to your message and, who you desire to be in the online space. So I would love to, have a conversation about that and, kind of just riff and talk on whatever comes up as we're chatting today. But yeah, tell me a little bit about, or tell the audience also a little bit about, how you sort of came to be in the online space and why you're still here. Like, what motivates you to continue to do what you do?
I love that question, why are you still here? Because I think probably like anyone, sometimes I ask myself, why am I still here? Or I have those days where I think, like, I've got nothing new. Like, who do I even think I am to be opening my mouth on the internet? And despite what I know it appears, because I am very prolific as a content creator with my blogging, my, all my free content, written, video, and otherwise, and of course with my programs, I think I've probably created more programs than anyone on the internet. I don't think it's an inaccurate call to say I've probably created more content than anyone on the internet as far as like original content, not just repurposing a high amount of content. And why am I still here? How do I keep going? It's definitely not because I am just continually, I guess, in that inspired flow or whatever I know a lot of people perceive to be true about me. It's a commitment. It's a commitment to consistency about who I chose to be a long time ago. And it's also, honestly, and this might sound a bit strange, but I know you'll get it and your people will get it. Might sound strange to some people, though, I suppose. It's self-preservation, because I've experienced who I am when I don't show up for my writing and my content and my creating and saying yes to that flow, whether the flow be my own journaling or, creating something free or paid or being here with you or being with a client or whatever it might be. I know who I am when I'm not saying yes to that, and I don't freaking like it, and I'm not fun to be around for people in my life either. And it's self-preservation in the sense that this is a fuel source for me. And when I started to really consistently make a lot of money on the internet, which was now online in some form for 16 years now, the first few years just kind of blogging and I was selling whatever, but then since 2008, selling something in some way, shape or form, the first few years, I wasn't really looking at it this way. I was finding my way, and I had a physical business off the internet, and I was starting to morph those together and blah, 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 gradually learn about making money online before most people really did, before this industry existed, that's for sure. But it wasn't until a bit later that I just sort of realized, well, this is never going to go away. It's never going to not be part of me to have something to say and share. And the internet obviously gives us a vehicle to be able to put ourselves on a platform and appoint ourselves really as whatever we want to be or whatever we think we're meant to be. And so while I forget what I was trying to say and I lost my point just then when I went back to 2006, but while I am motivated, I guess, in some fashion to create more success or results or outcomes or whatever, yes, no, not really. That's not a driver. I don't believe I'm naturally driven enough to actually do things for outcome's sake. So I actually am pretty lazy naturally, or that's how I feel, I guess, like a lot of high-level creators, in that I won't do shit unless I really want to do it or I really see an intrinsic reason to do it. And that's what it comes down to for me. There's a strong intrinsic need for me to be who I am, with my business being one vehicle for that. Because without that, without me expressing and pouring forth and just consistently showing up for the work, whether or not I feel like it, I'm a hot mess and I'm kind of an arsehole to be around. And so it really was just like a moment in time years ago where I looked to the future of my life. And yeah, sure, like I'm an entrepreneur and I have a brain that sees where money can be made. I absolutely saw all of that. And I was like, well, I'll just keep doing this and I'm going to make millions of dollars. And it was like that black and white in my head. But it was also, and more or on a deeper level, it was, I have to do this. Like I cannot try and live this thing called life without this. It's not going to work for me. I have to be writing, speaking, expressing. And I'd always known that since I was a little kid. But then for the first time, I'd found like this vehicle that allowed me to do that and even required me to do that. And where kind of, I guess, the pathway to the ultimate success was just doing the thing that I always knew I had to do. So it was a commitment. It was just a very actually clinical commitment that no matter what, I'll do this for the rest of my life, because I can see that while I might fight back and forth against whether or not I want to or whether or not I think I know how, it's always going to be a good move for me. And I think in general with success and with so many things that I've created in my life, I actually have been a lot more clinical about it than what people think or what I guess makes sense, because I'm so about flow and following flow. But I believe that flow, contrary to what a lot of people realize, begins with discipline. It begins with a commitment.
Yeah. So it's super interesting that you say that, because I think that, one of the things that was most triggering for me when I first started working for you was this idea of discipline and consistency, because I rebelled so much against it. Like and I was like, I don't fucking want to be disciplined. I don't want to have to be consistent. Like I felt like they were these like dirty words that were like boxing me into something that I had worked really hard to get away from, working in corporate or, even running my own businesses, like feeling like I had to be consistent. I had to be disciplined. I had to show up. And I just had this, I was so rebellious. And, and so I kept kind of engaging with your work and engaging in your programs. And that seemed to be this recurring theme. And it just would piss me off all the time. And I would just be like, I don't want to do that though. I don't want to have to be consistent. And I think it really was at the Bali event, and being sort of one-on-one with you that I actually got what you're talking about right now, which was there actually is great freedom in discipline and consistency. It's hard to understand that, I think, if you haven't actually experienced it. But now for me, and I think from that point of kind of having that aha moment with you that day, I was like, oh, it's me being able to show up on my terms. But when I'm not disciplined and I'm not consistent and I'm not giving to my audience in that way, I'm actually suffering. And I feel like I have a hard time tapping into those flow states when I'm not keeping those commitments. And it's really interesting that this is up, because I've actually pulled away quite a bit from my audience in the last 6 months, and actually just did a live stream about this, talking about this last week. It would appear that I'm online everywhere because my team is constantly repurposing all of my stuff. And so I think this is actually quite surprising to people that I haven't been showing up. And I've been really plateaued and I felt really stuck. And so, so last week it was, I had this come to Jesus moment with myself. And it was look, you can keep being in this plateaued state and feeling really mediocre and feeling really shit about your business right now, or you can start showing up again. And it was I literally did this. I was okay, I'm just going to make a commitment again to be consistent, to show up, to do the live streams, whether I feel like it or not, to write the things, whether I feel like it or not. And it was 3 days into it, I had, an amazing financial day. And then all of a sudden, I'm feeling better and I'm able to access those flow states. So yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Talk to that a little bit, maybe about why do you think it is that we're able to actually access flow states when we're showing up in that disciplined, committed way?
Because that's a great question. Because we're realizing that it's not about us, because we're submitting to something beyond us. And because what you described when you said you stepped back for however long and you haven't been showing up, I've done that. And same as what you just said, nobody would ever really have known. And I mean, I still show up for my private clients and anyone who's directly in my space. So I never have actually taken a complete break or step back totally. But there's been plenty of times I've stepped back from being there in the community and I've just been whatever, right? Disheartened, disconnected over everything, over everybody, letting things going on in the world and how most people seem to think about them impacts me and really make it that I felt like I didn't want to be part of that world or whatever. And then there's also been a lot of periods for me where I felt frustrated at myself, why am I still here circling in this playground of coaches, and where I would be resentful of an entire industry that I have been really a key leader within, resentful at myself for, I don't know, perpetuating and creating this industry that then becomes so incestuous, and where I kind of was I'm so this is not my legacy. What, she posted a bunch of shit on Facebook and made a ton of money? So fucking what? So I've been through all of it, and usually on repeat. And while I think that there's always something there, perhaps in these sort of internal conversations, okay, well, Kat, if you're feeling frustrated at the playground that you're circling around in, well, where do you want to be then? Where do you want to be planting your flag or posting or sharing stuff? Is there something there? Or is it just that you started to make it about you again, which is fine, we're allowed to be human, but at the end, or in the end, at the end of the day, as I was saying earlier, I committed to this work because I knew that I needed to do it, and I knew that I can't live my life without it. And so in that God, it's, well, self-preservation might be slightly negative framing, but that's certainly part of it. Self-activation maybe is like a nicer, more fun way to say it. But either way, anytime when you're going through what you just described, the answer is always like, can only ever be to come back to, but it's not about me. It's about the fact that I came here to do this work. Like, sure, sometimes I'm not going to feel like it, or I'm going to be over the whole industry, or I'm going to think I'm over my business, or I'm definitely going to be over myself at times. And there's going to be other times where I'm like, do I really have to be this? I was talking with one of my best girlfriends about this morning, where I was like ranting off at her on an audio message on WhatsApp over the weekend. And then she replied to me, and I was listening while I was like straightening my hair for this. And it was like I was ranting off to her about, oh, like, do I have to be this person? Like, sometimes I'm just so over being so intense. Like, do I always need to be fucking stimulated? Do I always need to be creating? Otherwise, I feel like I'm a shit wife, mom, human. Like, I don't know who I am, or I don't feel connected or happy or whatever. And I think sometimes we go looking for answers outside of what is just true. And what is just true is, but this is who you are. Like, deal with it. And so with like flow being so connected to discipline, which it so truly is, and so many people have discipline trauma essentially from previous parts of their life, but discipline is such a gateway. And discipline not only creates flow and leads to flow and creativity and being tapped in and getting those supernatural downloads and just being all of you, but it also is like an override button for your own bullshit, right? Because otherwise you can continue to have like 6 months here, 6 months there, where you're like, maybe I don't want to do this, and fuck everyone, and I'm over myself, and I'm over the whole, and I'm not going to do it anymore. And yeah, cool. So at the end of that 6 months or whatever it is, what's going to happen? You're still going to be this person who needs to express and create and share things into the world. It's like when people come on the internet, and this is my favorite because I did it many times. I definitely did this post end of 2012. I remember it. I'm never coaching again. I'm taking on my last 3 ever coaching clients. I've realized I'm done with being a coach. And then like 100 people go, yes, Queen, or whatever. And I see these posts. I saw this same post from someone not that long ago who is an amazing coach, but obviously like not resonating with word coach in that moment. And I just looked at her, I was like, yes, you fucking are going to be a coach because you're a coach. Like, stop using that word if it's annoying you. And yeah, I get that we're all going to have a moment of being so over the industry that, you know, has given us so much and that we've been a big part of creating or whatever. But no, you're not going to stop being this person who requires flow. You're not going to stop being like you stop coaching. So what you're saying is you're now going to coach people for free at dinner parties who don't want it, because somebody's going to be hearing this shit from you, whether or not it's coming through in your business or elsewhere. Or it will become, you know, if you really do try and turn that tap off and step back from the discipline that's required for flow, then it will get pent up, and then it will become toxic or dangerous, or, you know, creating all sorts of, just tragic situations internally and potentially externally as well. So it really does in the end come down to, am I willing to admit who I am? And then if I am, okay, well, what does that human need in order to function at its best? You know, like I can't, I don't know, try and drown a cacti plant in water and think that it's going to be okay. I have to give it what it needs in order to thrive and survive. And it's the same with us. And it's maybe just like surrendering and leaning into that, and surrendering and leaning into the discipline part of it as much as anything. Because imagine if we didn't have this constant argument in our own heads about whether or not we're going to be this person, right? Like imagine if all of that energy and, you know, input that, like for each of us and whoever's listening, I'm sure everyone here can relate in some way. Imagine if over the past 12 months, even you took all the times that you'd been like beaten up on yourself basically for who you are and trying to have an argument in your head as to whether or not you really have to be this person or do that. And imagine if all the time and energy put into that was just like deleted or restored to you, it would be so much. And so if you think about the next 12 months moving forward, what if you just made it easy on yourself from here on out? What if it was just, this is who I am. I can argue about it all week or all month or for 6 months, whether or not I feel like showing up, whether or not whatever else. in the end, I'm going to come back to the same thing. So why don't I just save myself and everyone around me the hassle and just go be that person? And that's what the discipline is about for me. And like, it's so easy, right? We're just talking about moments in time. I was thinking about this morning when I got up feeling like weird and dizzy and out of it, and I've had COVID, and I'm still like, that was a freaking mental void of a bizarre place to be. I'm still sort of recovering, I guess, energetically a bit. So I was a bit annoyed this morning. I woke up feeling just foggy, and a bit out of it. And I got on my elliptical cross trainer, which is in my garage, and just did a little cardio for 30 minutes, which I didn't want to do. But as I got into it, I'm like, well, next minute, you're already up to 17 minutes and you've nearly done the 30 minutes and you feel great and you've cleansed and cleared your body. Like, it's always this simple. I can either just get on and do the 30 minutes, or I can spend the whole day arguing in my head about whether or not I feel like moving my ass today, or whether or not I feel like journaling or writing or whatever. And that's, I guess, the big thing that I've been about and taught for years, that, as you said, like triggered you and triggered plenty of people along the way who, I guess, we all want to believe like, it's just flow and it's ease and it's effortless. And I certainly teach a lot on that, but it's all built on a foundation of do the fucking work. Just identify like the 2 or 3 basic things that make you you, and just do them every day, no matter what. That's where it becomes so fucking easier. And it's also where you tap in to everything that you otherwise would not access, which is what we, live for.
Yeah. So I love that. So I just want to recap that, because I think that's actually really important. So you're like, find the 2 or 3 things that make you you, that like make you the best version of you, right? And do those things every day. So it's not that you have to do everything I do every day or everything Kat does every day. It's like, what are the 2 or 3 things that make you you, that make you the best version of you? And doing those things. I have a question though, because I feel like, and I know you well enough to know, like, you're actually like this in most areas of your life, though. Do you think that you're just a person that is able to be disciplined? Because you do this with exercise. You do this, like, you're disciplined even in the commitments that you make to your children, like spending that time with your children. And I'm sure spending that time with your husband now. And like it looks from the outside that it's easy for you to make and keep commitments to yourself, and that it's easy for you to be disciplined. Would you say that's true? Is that something you've had to work at? Or is that something that, like, talk about that? Because I think, I think people often wonder, like, are you just a person? And I wonder this sometimes too, because when I do keep set commitments to myself, I am able to keep them, but I'm like, is that just because I'm a disciplined person? Or is that something that you've created? Or is that something that you continue to have to work out?
Like, struggle more with discipline with the human things. Well, it's all human things, but like, this is not fun to admit, but I struggle a lot more with it to do with parenting or being in a relationship. Commitments in that area, I feel like I make them probably more negotiable depending on my energy, or whether I feel inspired, or like whether I'm vibing to, I don't know, like if I said I'm going to play a card game with one of my kids, for example, which my son wants to play cards a lot at the moment, like, sure, I'm into that plenty of times. But there's certainly times where I'll say, yeah, I'll play cards with you after lunch. And then I'll be like, nah, I'm not feeling that right now. I don't want to. And I'm probably like more likely to try and shift or adjust a commitment like that than what I am my writing or my creating or my fitness. And those have been habits that have been ingrained within me before I had kids, I suppose. So they've been around longer in that regard. But it's probably more that I've made more obvious, like, neurological and energetic connections to where I see the purpose of doing it a lot more, which sounds, like, I don't really like admitting that, I guess, because I'm like, well, do you not see the purpose in following through on play or bake or craft things or whatever with the kids? And I'm like, no, I find that harder. I find it harder, like, especially if it's like making things or baking or crafting, or, I don't know, repetitive playing of games that I don't necessarily want to do. Like, that's the harder thing for me over the years, where I really try to find like the commitment to that I can energetically get behind. Sometimes it's not there, and sometimes it's just you fucking do the thing because and it's not about your humans really, where I get my commitment and my consistency from in all these different areas. I probably should have more of a conversation in my head about it to do with stuff with other people, because I feel like stuff with other people is far more optional than stuff to do with my own internal flow. even though my logical mind doesn't agree with that, but I just have kind of deeper connections around, I guess, my writing and that sort of thing. So I will build those commitments to who I am, like as a mom or any other area of just being human, based not on what I feel like in the moment. And this is what I did for the writing as well, though, in the first place, and for fitness and for any other area. Just that some of these have been ingrained in me for decades now. I will build the commitment based on keep taking yourself into, but how are you going to feel afterwards? It's not what you think you want right now or what you think you feel like doing right now. It's how you're going to feel at the end of the hour or the day, and then just add it up. Like, okay, if that 1 hour, you know, is a choice you're making every day, whether or not you're going to have bonded, connected time with your kids day to day, for example, sure, well, you can easily have a conversation that it didn't matter for one day, same as anything. But if we're talking about a consistent choice, how are you going to feel not just at the end of that hour or that day, but that week, that month, that year, that decade? You can't get that time back. And that's how I've done all of it. Honestly, it's always been for me about just look at who you want to be, not even like at the end of today, but I do think about that. I just motivate myself through the day if I'm not feeling motivated by, okay, but what do you want to feel when you go to bed tonight, when you put your head on the pillow? Like, make your choices from that place rather than, well, I don't feel like it or whatever, because otherwise you'll spend the whole day feeling, you know, like this thing pulling at you that you didn't say yes to, that you could have just fucking said yes to first thing in the morning. But bigger than that, I think, but a decade from now, 20 years from now, like, why would I not just choose now to be the person who I'm going to be so glad that I chose to be? So I think I'm quite good at, forward thinking in that regard and making my choices in the now by connecting myself back to the vision of what I desire in that area and just really like confronting myself with it rather than giving myself permission to opt out. But I'm not quite as, I don't know, robotic or whatever, as I guess that makes it sound. There's plenty of times I don't follow through on all sorts of things, business related, any of it, but probably just most of the time I follow through, or certainly in society now, even in the entrepreneur space, I don't know, like it feels like there's not that many people out there who understand discipline and consistency and commitment and being like a high integrity person within their own, I just mean within their own integrity to themselves, you know, like their own morals and work ethic. And I remember reading something about like everyone should have a moral code. Well, we do all have a moral code of what we believe we should be living for or living by. Whether or not we've articulated it, we've got it. And you don't meet that many people anymore that visibly have a strong moral code for themselves that they live by. And I just think it's not actually that hard, because either way, you're going to live those moments. Why not just live them for the things that you say you value? And that's definitely how I do it. And the thing with remembering to be human and not just like prioritizing being away in my own flow has been a bit of a harder journey for me, maybe because I'm, I don't know, like scared of if I don't do these flow things, then I don't like who I am and I don't feel right, basically. But whatever the reason, that has been a bit harder, but it just comes down to principles and values. And I really just train myself into being the person. And I also don't do it from a place of like, okay, well, I'll make myself follow through and I'll force myself to do this thing, like with my business or my writing or my kids or anything. How no? Like if there's something I don't want to do and I really am like, I do not want to do that, it's not fun for me, then I'll either basically start planning in an intention that it is going to click in and I'm going to find that flow and joy and connectedness in it, and I'm going to genuinely be happily present in that with that other person or with whatever it is, or I'll seek an alternative. So it's not like I think I should have to do every different possible thing the kids want to do or whatever. I'm always, you know, being honest with them, and at the same time, though, noticing where is it just my own resistance and my own bullshit that's creating a story that I really don't need to listen to right now.
Yeah, super. All of that really, really valuable, I think. And like for me, definitely like triggering some remembrances, and I think probably for everybody listening, like can relate to that in one way or another. And I think those are all such amazing reminders. So I want to talk to you a little bit about and ask, you know, I think that the online space obviously is shifting. I mean, I think it's always shifting, growing and evolving, but over the last 12 months, especially, I think with, the censorship that we've been seeing, the algorithm stuff that we've been seeing, like how has your business been impacted? And what are your thoughts on what's happening? I mean, I've seen in my business personally, like I would say, especially in the last year, I've seen it's just my reach has gone so far down, and that's impacting my numbers. And so it's been for me about finding alternatives and alternative ways to reach people. Like I'm really grateful, obviously, like for this podcast and some of the other places that I've diversified to. But I'm interested to know from you, like, have you been seeing this? Have you been experiencing this? What are your thoughts about like, where's Facebook going? I know, because I think you have quite a presence on Instagram as well, but I think your primary avenue is still Facebook. Is that correct?
Firstly, Instagram's a newer thing for me. I only started to really give Instagram attention. I mean, I was on it for maybe 10 years now, but I only started to give it attention when my business was at multi-7 figures, and it was maybe like 5 years ago. And that was only because one of my clients, Amanda, who's huge on Instagram, basically like coerced me into it in a way, or was just like at me again and again, like, you got to be on Instagram. I was like, I don't understand it. I don't want to do it. And so one of my clients, taught me how to do stories and that sort of thing. And then I gradually started doing it, but it was this very sort of slow moving thing. And I would say over the last year or two, especially maybe the last year, it's more and more felt to me like, shit, I really got to get better at Instagram, I guess, because it feels like that's where everything is. I was, big on Facebook for years. I built my business initially without Facebook though, before Facebook. And so that had come along later for me. But yeah, for sure, like that was huge for me for years. And Facebook was like where it was at. And I was certainly like the queen of Facebook in the online coaching world. And I got my business through Facebook and built such a strong platform there. And I loved posting and being in the conversation there through my personal page as well as my business page for years. Like I was genuinely wanting to show up there all the time, and I always had something to say. Whereas over the last few years, I've been less and less truly desiring to show up there or anywhere, to be honest. And I've been through a lot up and down in my head. Like, am I done with showing up? The stuff that I said before. Like, or am I done at least with showing up on social media? And like feeling, this same incestuous group of people, like we're all just growing old together now and we're still just doing the same shit. But then at the time I'm like, but look at us, like the ones that have been here for years, right? And every few years there's a new generation that passes through. And now I'm like, wow, I'm such an old timer, and do I really still want to be here? Like, am I going to be like this in every area of my life? Like in the gym and on Facebook, like I'll be the 7-year-old in the little hot pants at the gym that still thinks she's 20. But then maybe I'll be happy about it, So anyhow, my point is my reach has gone down massively on Facebook over the past few years. I don't consider that I have great reach anywhere really. Like even my story views and so on, I think are way lower than I would probably expect them to be based on my followers. And sometimes I'm astonished that I continue to make the money I make. Like my business, like a very low income month for us would be $200K in a month. That's like the bottom end, right? And it's been like that for years, multiple 6 figures per month. But my numbers on social media suck a lot of the time. Like if you go to my business Facebook page, the reach is like atrocious. And I honestly think, firstly, even back in the heyday where I had dozens of comments and so on, I've always had lower engagement than a lot of other people I know. And I've always had lower engagement than people who are making a lot more money then as well, which I've always found quite fascinating. To this day, that's definitely true. Like my engagement and interaction on social media does not remotely reflect my income. Like so many people who come to me, especially private clients, like they're such high-level game-changing people. Like some of them are doing coaching for sure, or at least probably half have coaching as one of their businesses, but they do all sorts of crazy shit, like well beyond the online world. I'm like, well, they just resonated with something. These women are not often the type that are commenting something on social media, and then they're like hitting me up and DMing me and becoming a private client, or even people who join my group programs and so on. They obviously find it somewhere. Even my email list is not that big. It's 20,000 or 20,500 right now. That's tiny. I've been doing this 16 years. Like that's crazy. but it's high quality, I guess. Like my conversions are off the hook. You know, I make more money than friends who've got over 1 million on their email list. And again, I think this comes down to stuff I've taught for years. Like your outcomes are going to be a product of your choices. I just choosing outcomes. And one of those is that I normalized a multi-7-figure PE business just within this business. And these days I have multiple businesses, investments. The coaching business, just one place money's coming in from. So I've gone full mogul mode over the past however long. And this is, you know, the front runner as far as like what I show up for, front of camera and so on. But I chose my income years ago. I keep any physical or material outcomes that I have will continue to call into my life, which is now mainly more like investments and developments and other cool projects and things. I just look at it all keep showing up. Like I'm about to be on a TV show on major television here. We start filming next week. I'm a major character on a brand new show on a major network. I haven't really talked about that online. I'm like, fucking hell, even that shit showed up and I planted that in years ago. I didn't pursue that. I didn't go and interview. I didn't do anything. That came entirely 100% to me. And now that we're only about to film next week and I just got like the script outline and all this, only then was I like, shit, like this stuff never doesn't, like, all I do is choose my outcomes. And oftentimes it shows up years later like this one, but I don't go and pursue it. In fact, anytime I do go and pursue something, it doesn't work. So with social, with Facebook and like reach and the stuff going on in the world, I've been way stepped back over the last few years compared to prior to that. And I've struggled with that just on a personal level. Like I've felt lost or like floundering in that area. And I felt worried about it as well. I'm worried about it affecting my business and my income in the coaching business. I'm going to tell you the only time my income in my coaching business has taken dips, which has happened plenty of times that this has happened, but it's still dipping to a pretty high set point. But the only time it dips down is when I question who I am, when I question my just unapologetically being catness or whatever. When I start thinking I'm no good and I let that be a dominant storyline, showing up doesn't matter. I've proven that many times. What does matter though is if I'm to be showing up, which inevitably I am because of reasons we discussed, and then I'm not. Like if I'm allowing myself to get triggered or distracted by, oh my God, everybody is so much better than me on Insta or TikTok or wherever, and I've been doing this for years, why is my engagement so pushing at way high levels visibly on their social media than me? If I start letting that shit get to me and then I start thinking, oh, okay, I need to like stay on top of social or something like that, none of that is true for me in my heart. Like I don't give a fuck about any of it. I never have. None of it is a true motivation or alignment for me at all. And then it's almost like what I'm doing is, or not almost, is taking my eye off the ball of me just being me and backing myself and backing my right beat here or wherever I am. And I've taken my eye off that ball. And I'm putting my eye onto the ball of, am I good enough? Am I keeping up? Does my Instagram look proper? Or should I be dancing on TikTok or whatever else, right? And it's just a distraction. And every time I've done that, my income goes down. My income could be tracked based on engagement and it will have zero impact, zero. It's only ever affected by how I'm choosing to see myself.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, choosing outcomes. And it's so interesting to me because, you know, obviously I journal as well. I've always been a journaler. It's, you know, something for me that definitely one of my, you know, non-negotiables. And I find when I'm not doing it, then things aren't in alignment. But, you know, that to me, like that is the journaling. Like, it's like, what do I choose for myself? What do I choose for my life? Like, what is the, you know, what is that next level version of myself or the highest level version of myself? Like what does that version of me want for me in the next 6 months or in the next year or in the next 2 years? And sometimes I don't put timelines on it, but yeah, I think that, you know, and I hadn't looked at it as choosing outcomes, but really just like coming into alignment with what I desire to be my reality. And then just continuing to put that out into the universe and out into the world of like, that's what I desire to have. But I think that's really beautiful. Like just really looking at choosing outcomes and, yeah, I mean, I think we all kind of get caught up in that. I do as well. Like, you know, I'm like recently I look at my engagement and I'm just like, oh, like, why is it so low? And what do I need to be doing? And do I need to show up more? And then that feels yucky to me. So then I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. So there's been a lot of resistance. So I think that's really helpful
because you're a soul-led creator and like you're a true born messenger like probably most people listening, I'm going to guess, or watching. And so you will never, ever be able to motivate yourself by, I should do something to get an outcome. Same as me. We just can't. We don't have it in us. This is what I mean when I go, oh, I'm quite lazy. Well, I know I'm not lazy, obviously, but in that regard, I am. Like, I'm just not going to do it. And you'll try and tell yourself, like, okay, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to like commit to whatever thing that you decided you can get behind that's supposedly going to grow your engagement or your list or whatever, or get you seen more or whatever. No, you won't. You'll just blow it up, or it will make you frustrated and resentful, and then you'll get disheartened and you'll feel down and sad, and then you'll be more like, it'll be a vicious cycle of being disconnected. You'll find it harder and harder to show up. This is one of the key reasons why women like us stop showing up. No, it's usually because you've started taking things that were just meant to be outcomes that you chose, and you've been turning them into a do list. We are the ones who are meant to just choose outcomes and then continue on our merry path of whatever it is that we're meant to do, ignore everyone. And I guess that does harder and harder on social. There's so much shit, but it maybe just makes it all the more important to have that discipline to not be caught up in it all and be like blind. I mean, one thing I've done on Facebook in recent years is unfriend nearly everyone, and I'm still in the process of doing that just because I'm human, same as anyone. If I have all this shit clogging up my feed, I'm going to look at it and it doesn't serve me. So I'm just like always looking at how can I bring myself back to my own path, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So, wow. So like so many amazing things. I got to go back and listen to this now so I could like decide like what to name this episode. And there have been so many great points. I feel like, really a lot of gems. So we're obviously put all of the places to follow Kat on socials in the show notes. Everywhere that you can reach her. You do have a new mastermind, or is it a relaunched mastermind? Screw the rules. Tell us.
Yeah, like I've always had a low cost membership since 2014, and actually even before that I did, but just was in fitness. So it's like a 2022 iteration of the Rich Chick Mastermind or High Vibe or various masterminds you've probably seen me have over the years. So it is the newest iteration. It is its own entity. It has things within Screw the Rules that have never existed before in the other memberships. But then there's common themes that obviously continue through all of my membership masterminds to do with live classes and Q&As and incredible community. And this is really cool because I've created 2 12-month structured curriculums, which is something I wanted to do for ages, but probably had a lot of resistance around, I guess, because I don't think that people learn like that. But then at the same time, I know if people don't know what they don't know, they still do need to learn those basic things. So I created 2 12-month structured curriculums, basically teaching everything that you could possibly need to know and how to understand and implement it for business, money, mindset, you name it. But then those are there like for people to dip in and out of as they want. They just get it all straight away from the get-go.
Amazing. So we will definitely put a link to that in the show notes as well. But, as Kat mentioned, like she creates so much free forward-facing content. And, one of the things that's really incredible about the work that she does is that it's very, very accessible at all levels. And, that's something that inspired me really early on, and that, I adopted and continue to do as well, which is, I've got my high-end things and then I've always got my entry-level things, and that's always felt really good to me. And I just want to thank you for being here and for, all of the inspiration that you've given me over the years and all of the incredible modeling I think that you do for everyone in the online space around what it really means to be in personal integrity with who you are, but then to show up, that way. And, I'm super grateful that you're still here, and hopefully, when we're both 70, we'll still be here sharing content on some kind of platform, whatever that looks like at that point.
Probably. It's not going to go away. Thank you so much for having me. This was amazing. I really appreciate it. Just appreciate you. And I love seeing you continue year in and year out as well, because it is rare. Like every year that passes, there's like this smaller core group of us who've been around for a really long time. And I think it's really cool. Like actually, I love being part of that. And I love just witnessing the continuation of other people like yourself who are just like you know, you're going to have your ebbs and flows, but you're still fucking there doing what you're meant to be doing. It's a rare thing to see, and it's worth celebrating.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, have an amazing rest of your day. Yeah. And that's it.
All right. Amazing.
That's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to connect with me on social media and reach out. I love hearing from you. And if you want more of me, real, raw, and uncensored, make sure to join the Wealth Witch Telegram channel. It's my free channel where I share all of my random daily musings, as well as the information that I feel like is important and pertinent to my community. We've put a link to the Telegram channel in the show notes, so make sure to come join us over there if that intrigues you. Remember, wealth is a mindset, and you are the most powerful creator in your reality. Until next time, this is the Wealth Witch signing off.